All right, Josh, I think we are live. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have Josh Martin with me, Senior PPC Engineer at SocialSEO. And we'll be talking about Google AdWords and Pay-per-Click today. Josh, you're a top expert in this field. My name is Chris Ralph. I'm the founder and digital marketing expert at Boulder SEO Marketing. Josh, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, as you said, I'm Josh Martin over here at SocialSEO. I'm a senior pay-per-click engineer. I've spent just under 15 years in the industry. I've dabbled and had experience in SEO, social media, almost every form of digital marketing, but really do enjoy pay-per-click and teamed up with this great group of people to really focus on my passion, pay-per-click.
All right, awesome. Let's go to the next slide. Josh, where's the best place to hide a dead body?
I guess in a ditch somewhere. I'm not too good at this.
Well, I teach digital marketing at high schools and universities. They come up with amazing answers. As you can see right from this slide, it's on page number 2 of Google. If you want to click to the next, right there. So basically, if you want to get traffic to your website, you need to be in the top 3 to 4 organic search results on page number 1. And you have an amazing opportunity to get more people to your website by adding PPC, pay-per-click, Google AdWords efforts on that page number 1. Honestly, the most hits will go to the top 3 to 4 search results. So this is where the money is. Why don't we go to the next slide? All right. In fact, so I'm talking about organic, natural search engine optimization. It takes time, as you can see from this example here. We took a customer from less than 400 visits from Google to about 4,200 per month. As a result, we also saw an increase of about 800% increase in revenues directly related to Google organic search traffic. As you can see from this slide, it took about 3.5 years. So organic, natural SEO is definitely the sprint, the marathon. It's not the sprint. So pay-per-click really provides an amazing opportunity to get to page number 1 within a very short amount of time. So if we would tell you, hey, we can get you this kind of result in the market, I mean, I'm sure you would jump on this opportunity. So with that said, Josh, I'm going to let you talk about pay-per-click and why it's why it should be an additional strategy to organic search engine optimization.
Wonderful. I'm going to do a quick crash course here in AdWords and pay-per-click. We're going to go over some of the main advertising types, so text, image remarketing, as well as video pre-roll. First, let's kind of talk a little bit about pay-per-click and SEO, kind of define what both of them are, and discuss why coupling them is such a great idea. First, let's look at this search engine and kind of dissect it. Let's look at its anatomy a little bit. This may be review for some of you, but it's always good to have a refresher. So at the top, we have a query. It's also known as a search term or keyword. It's basically what the user has entered into Google. Next, we have shopping. It's also called a PLA or product listing advertisement ads. Now, these are only for e-commerce advertisers. And so you have to have an active shopping cart that's able to take and receive orders to use this part of Google AdWords. Next, we have text ads. This is a big portion of what Google AdWords delivers. In fact, it's 80% of all of their profit lives right there in these ads. You can tell these are ads because they have the green ad icon, whereas the organic listings do not. And so organic is in red, and this is some people refer to as free or natural listings or organic rankings, but this is where Google chooses to place you in their search engine without advertising.
And Josh, so if I may interrupt you, it's probably worth mentioning that about 8 out of 10 people will actually click on the organic results, and 2 out of 10 will actually click on the paid ads, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that speaks to why having a pay-per-click and organic strategy coupled together is great, because you're going to capture all of those clicks. And let's talk a little bit more about that, kind of paid versus or paid coupled with organic and what it can do. Your customers expect to find you. And so by having paid and organic listings, you're going to receive more immediate traffic. You're going to get those impatient users as well that tend to just click towards the top of the search engine. It lets you control your messaging and landing page, and I'll have a brief example on what that looks like. And it lets you control and own more real estate. Now, when we refer to real estate, we're talking about how much space actually taking up in the Google search engine. So the more real estate you take up, the better, because it leaves less space for your competition. Paid and organic drives more overall traffic. I'm going to have some really good figures on that in a moment. And it also improves your key brand health metrics. So how recognizable is your brand? How much prominence do people associate your brand name in that particular industry? And paid search influences purchase. So again, we'll have some more data on that moving forward, but paid search users in most verticals tend to convert slightly more often, meaning they complete the action you want them to on the website. So a conversion would be a form being filled out, or a phone call, or say an e-commerce sale, something to that effect. So I was mentioning how coupling these two mediums, paid and organic, can be very powerful. And I think this is a good example. If somebody searches for you by your own brand name and you only show an organic listing, you have a 42% likelihood of that person visiting your site. If you're only showing a paid listing, it's 53%. But when you couple paid and organic strategies, you have a 95% likelihood of that person visiting your website. And this speaks back to Chris's point, where having both elements really does capture the most audience, both paid and organic listings. I talked a little bit about landing pages and how we can control them. And I think this is a great example from diapers.com. You can see this blue headline here, and they've chosen to make this ad a 20% off incentive. Now, if you were to try to achieve this organically and make your headline show an incentive, it could take a couple months. It could even, depending on the situation, be the better part of a year before you show that discount in your headline. Now, by the time you're showing that, you may not want to offer the discount anymore. But at that point, even if you change your landing page to no longer have the 20% off language, Google may still display your listing with 20% off in the headline for a period of time after you've made that change. So pay-per-click really kind of solves this problem. It allows us to have very time-sensitive ads and complete control over the landing page we want to see. So what diapers.com effectively has done is made themselves a tool that they can turn off and on as they need. They can turn the 20% off discount on when they need it and completely cut it when they don't. So it makes it much more nimble to change the messaging in search.
I mean, it's an amazing opportunity to really push sales or a product or service, right, in an instant.
Oh, definitely. And for that matter, it helps to boost sales in lower performing areas. So say you're doing well in segment A, product A, but product B is a little stagnant. It has not had any growth. You could select that product and choose to really funnel that in and affect what the market's seeing and what they're interacting with.
Absolutely.
And so now I'm going to jump into remarketing, and I want to spend a good amount of time on this because it's really the meat and potatoes of what AdWords is and what it's going to become very shortly. But first, let's talk about the necessity for remarketing and what it is. So most people are familiar with remarketing as you visit an e-commerce site, you go to bestbuy.com, let's say, and you're looking at a printer. You decide not to buy that printer at that point in time. All of a sudden, for 90 days, you're having ads following you around, encouraging you to buy different printers or printer accessories. That's remarketing in its most simple definition. And this is where it comes into play as a necessity, because only 21% of our time is spent in search engines. So on Bing, MSN, Google, that's only 21% of our time. Whereas 89% of our time are on other sites. They're on social media, they're on YouTube, they're hopping in Gmail, looking at blogs and forums. As they do that, they're actually moving through something called the Google Display Network, which is a grouping of well over 2 million websites. And these websites rent a small portion of space to Google. And you can deliver images, videos, or text advertisements in these spaces using the Google Display Network. Now, this network covers 94% of the internet. So that's basically everything but social media platforms like Twitter or Facebook. Now, let's talk about the necessity of the Google Display Network and kind of how it comes into play in a typical consumer's journey. So let's look at this individual who is looking for a lawyer. He's going to start his search with a more broad term. He's going to look for how to find a lawyer. And from there, you could deliver them a text advertisement right there in Google. But let's say they chose not to click into that at that time, did see the ad, but decided to read an article for advice on finding a lawyer. From there, based off of what they've entered into the search engine moments before, you could deliver them an image or video advertisement. Say they sign up for a newsletter while they're reading the news article, and they come a few days later, check their email because they want to see what they have to say about their lawyer search. While they're in email, you can present them with a Gmail advertisement directly in their inbox. As they move through and start to look at maybe other directories outside of Google, third-party directories that are specific to lawyers, that directory is very likely a part of the Google Display Network. So you're also going to be able to deliver text ads in that directory as well as images and videos. Lastly, they're going to return to Google and they feel more well-informed. They've done their due diligence and research.
So we have a question, Josh, sorry to interrupt. Is there a limitation in terms of time? How long will an ad follow somebody?
Yes, there is a limitation. It's as far as 90 days. Now, some people, that may be too far of a buying cycle. They might be a much more immediate product or service. You can shrink that window to as small as a week.
Great, thank you.
And then from there, they're going to end up in Google search, and they're going to do a search for something like law firm in whatever city they're from. Then they'll visit a website and likely complete a form or a phone call and ultimately become a customer. But the advertiser that successfully navigated through all of these and was able to deliver ads the entire way through successfully stayed top of mind and has a much higher likelihood of gaining that customer. So you can see the consumer journey's changed a lot. It's not so linear. They do tend to jump around more. And it's during that research time that remarketing really shows what it can do. For example, 96% of people leave a website without converting. At that point in time, those people should be reached out to via remarketing to return and complete that conversion. For e-commerce sites, 70% of people abandon their shopping carts without purchasing. So a very good time to reach out maybe with an additional incentive, using some remarketing to maybe say, we'll give you 5% off to come complete your order with us. And 49% of everyone typically visits 2 to 4 sites before purchasing. So on that last slide, when they made it to the purchasing phase, they were looking at 2 to 4 sites. And as they made that consideration, the person who reached out to them the most via remarketing has the likelihood of getting that conversion. Next, we're going to look at video pre-roll. And I've kind of touched on video a bunch as we went through. This is really the next frontier for AdWords. And it's one of those get on the ground floor moments for sure, because it's only going to get bigger and better. First, let's kind of do the anatomy of a pre-roll advertisement. Most of us are familiar with YouTube and the skippable ads and sometimes the non-skippable ads, but there's other elements to this advertisement that might be a little more subtle. In the upper right-hand corner, we have an option for the user to engage on YouTube. So they can click right into this advertiser's YouTube channel, watch videos, like, comment, and share. From there, you actually have a share icon as well. And this can share to email, other social networking platforms. That actually brings up a really good point too, because YouTube, a lot of people don't realize, is the world's second largest social media platform and the world's second largest search engine. So it's a video search engine, and itself is actually a social network profile.
Yeah, and I mean, we have 5 teenagers in the house, and I mean, I cannot tell you how much they hang out on YouTube. So it's definitely, I mean, hyper important, right?
Oh, definitely. And then it's core for the millennial audience as well. But we see a lot of baby boomers and a lot of the 30-something crowd that are kind of on the cusp of millennials. We see them using YouTube for how-to videos and instructional videos a lot. So it's great because we can capture large swaths of the market, and it's custom to what that type of what that user is actually looking at.
Exactly. Hey Josh, real quick, do you have any statistics on like homemade videos versus professionally created videos?
Oh, yes. I mean, it is kind of a point of debate and definitely a topic of interest right now in the industry. There's some really good anecdotal evidence and a few case studies out there that are pointing towards homemade or self-produced videos resonating a little better with audiences. And a lot of people are attributing that to kind of an endearing factor. It's a labor of love. They took the time to make this for their business. If you already have existing production, you've made a television commercial, it's great to just repurpose that commercial right here in pre-roll. But let's say you don't have the production dollar to shoot a full-blown television commercial. There's a lot of really good lightweight alternatives out there. So something I like to recommend is an app called YouTube Director. And this is an app that will give you a series of templates, and they're going to be templated ads, and you can choose which ad looks the best. And they'll show you an example with a generic business. From there, you choose your template, and it's going to give you very clear step-by-step directions. So quite literally as simple as point camera at front of building, shoot for 4 seconds. Say words about your business into microphone for X amount of time, and then they'll take all these assets that they've recorded on your phone and edit up a video for you right then and there. It's a great lightweight way to have a professionally directed video in YouTube advertising.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then really quickly, this banner, it's often overlooked here, so I do want to call it out. Not necessarily overlooked by the consumer, but overlooked by the advertiser. This is an optional 300 by 60 banner that you could write in YouTube. This banner, much like the video we just saw, is linked directly to your website. It gives you complete control over the messaging, and in fact, this one's a very good example of a clean, crisp, uncluttered ad, and it really stands out from the text-heavy videos and some of the other things we might see around it in YouTube. Really quickly, couple more pieces of anatomy on the advertisement itself. There is a call to action button, a CTA here, and this actually delivers a really purposeful intent to it. So video is commonly perceived as a passive advertisement because we're very used to watching it on television, which is a one-way communication. It can speak towards us, but we can't engage with it back. This allows the users who are unaware of that to really know that they could click here into the advertiser's website and engage with them from there. This is great for capturing the baby boom and older demographic who is very, very used to kind of that passive engagement. Let's look at another format. So here we're going to see a quick ad, and this format doesn't have a link to your website, and it does not have a banner to your website here either. This one is a different goal. This is for the social media aspect of YouTube. This is to drive more engagement to your YouTube profile. So what it's going to do is it's going to play a video that it believes is of interest to that particular YouTube user, and it's going to give them a selection of 3 other videos here. These videos are also customized to what that particular user is interested in to really give you the highest likelihood of them continuing to engage. You still can subscribe and engage with the channel through here, but you now have this new option to subscribe or click into the channel here as well. Now this banner is a little larger. It's about 300 by 250, and that's because we're not sending users outside of YouTube in this case, so they're going to go ahead and make that a little bit larger for you. So if your goal is engagement and brand awareness, this is your advertising format. If your goal is website traffic, you're going to want to use the previous format that we looked at. So real quick, I kind of want to talk about where YouTube was and where it's going. 2007, when Google purchased YouTube, it was mainly a desktop app. It was something we used to send videos to, maybe college roommates or colleagues and coworkers. It really isn't this full-blown media machine that we're seeing today in 2017. And we've seen already over 50% increase in what's referred to as cross-device viewership in YouTube. And that's allowed us to do some stuff with video that's really never been done in marketing. So for example, let's say a user picks up a YouTube video in the morning on her mobile phone. She'll be presented at that time with a pre-roll ad. We can make that pre-roll the first in a sequential story, so a series that's going to unfold in front of her. Let's say she goes to work and on her lunch break she opens her laptop, she wants to show that video to a colleague. From there, it's going to play the second part in the series. As she comes home and wants to show her husband on a tablet, let's say, she'll see the third part, and so on, until she completes the entire series. So it can be used to engage people in a way video never has been able to. But the real potential is when you begin to connect AdWords with YouTube and your Google Maps profile. Once you have those three things connected, Google really has the authority and the data to paint a very precise picture of who your customer is. Because at this point, they kind of know what things they enjoy watching, what things they enjoy surfing through on the internet, what types of things they've been entering in the last 90 days. They also know patterns about where they search for maps, where they may work, where they may live, all kinds of great information like that. But you only get that kind of power in AdWords once you've coupled those three properties.
And Josh, it's probably worth to mention that Google is making a big push in regards to Google My Business, right?
Yes. That's a very good point. So there's a lot changing in Google My Business, and there's going to be a lot for about the next year. But what's here and now is Google Maps advertising, which is facilitated by your Google My Business account. And what this is it's actually a paid Maps listing, something they've never done before. And for the first time, you can actually show two ads in one search result. So you can show your text ads that we saw earlier and a Maps advertisement. Now, I don't have an example to show you, but they really do look just like a regular Maps ad or Maps listing. You just take preferred placement when it's applicable to that user. So what that means is you're going to be at the top of the list as long as it still makes sense. So Google's not going to recommend a florist 20 miles away when you're currently standing right in front of one. That's not a very good user experience for them. But when it's relevant to that user's location and what they've searched, your Maps listing is going to take placement at the top. And from there, once they've leveraged all these big data sets, now they can really start to understand much more than just the keyword that they've entered. They can understand the consumer's patterns, the life events. So have they had a wedding recently, or did they move, or a funeral perhaps, or enhancements to existing AdWords audiences. And a quick note there, when Google refers to audiences, it often is a synonym for what we call lists in traditional media. So in traditional media, you have an email list, let's say a phone number list, or an address list, and those are your marketing lists. Well, Google refers to those lists as audiences, so just use those as interchangeable. Really quick, to kind of come back to the point of remarketing and how it is a holistic journey nowadays, I wanted to talk about how remarketing and pre-roll couple together nicely. So in remarketing in general, including pre-roll, it takes on average 3 engagement to prove ad effectiveness, to improve it. So what does that mean? It means that most users need to see or engage with an ad upwards of 3 times before they ever complete a purchase on your site or complete the action you'd like them to. And so let's talk about that a little more and dissect that further, because there really is two different tracks here in YouTube, and that's why there's the two different ad formats we saw earlier. We have customer one, and she's more of your website user. She tends to get to know a brand based off the content of their website. Whereas we have customer number two. He's more of a moralist. He wants to really understand the brand, know where they're coming from before he ever makes it to their website. Both of these users are then presented with the exact same advertisement. User number one, she's going to choose to watch it, and she's probably going to watch it 1 to 3 times before ever making it to your website. She may only watch it for a portion of time the first time, and then on the second run through decide to watch it all the way through. After that, she's going to go ahead and make it to your website and likely make a purchase and conversion and complete the desired action you want. Now, our more social user, he's going to take a second look and look at that message again because he thought that video was catchy enough. That speaks to making your videos as catchy as you can, especially in the first 5 seconds. That being said, he might spend some time on the YouTube profile reading the About Me section, sharing some videos, commenting on some, asking some questions directly to this advertiser. From there, they're going to eventually make their way to your website. And it's going to take them a little longer than user number one. However, once they do come to your website and decide to convert, they've got a much higher likelihood of turning into a long-term customer because you provided them the channel that they preferred to engage with. Whereas your website user, she may very well become a long-term customer, but she just has a slightly lower likelihood of becoming that customer. And lastly, I want to talk about ad extensions. And this is circling back to Google search. And the reason I want to is ad extensions are something, again, that's often overlooked by an optimizer or overlooked by an agency or an advertiser, but they're not overlooked by the consumers, and they're very important. So let's look at what these are. Here we have the Lowe's Hotel Hollywood. Someone's searching for a very specific search result here. And this particular search result is littered with what's called advertising extensions. And so those are additional content that you can add on to your existing AdWords text ads. And so let's see what this search result would look like without extensions. We'll get rid of this review extension, don't need that. Get rid of these call-out extensions, address. These are called site links. We don't need those. Okay. Oh, we can't book a room anymore or see the room's availability. So this search result is becoming very sparse. And what's going to happen here is your competitors are going to take up this space. It's going to collapse upon itself, and they're going to take up this space in Google search. I keep talking about space and real estate, but why is that so important? So we borrowed a term here. You're going to hear this commonly in digital marketing. So above the fold and below the fold. It's a term that actually comes from newspaper advertising. So the prominent spot for your ad was always above the fold. It was a little more expensive, but it made sure your ad showed on the front of the newspaper, where behind the fold or below the fold was not the best place to have your ad and a little more affordable. So we still preserve that, but instead the fold line's here. The fold line's about 2/3 around down the search page here. And I put a heat map over this particular search result, and the heat map shows where people spend their time with their eyes, where they're reading. Red indicates they've spent more time, whereas kind of bluish gray indicates they've spent less time. And so we all read up to down, right to left. You can tell that people tend to read the headlines more of the paid ads, and then they tend to spend more time down here in the organic ads reading the descriptions and the headlines. Then they hop over here to the knowledge graph, and they read that in its own silo, so left to right again. Now that graph might show different things. So this particular example is an e-commerce search, so you're going to see Google Shopping. You could see, like we saw earlier, a knowledge graph for the Lowe's Hotel that has information about the property we're searching for. But 3/4 of consumers expect brands to be at the top of the landing page. So they expect your brand to be there if you're doing your job. So if you type Nike, they want to see nothing but Nike litter the page. And a third of all users associate that placement with your brand's prominence. So they're going to see this and consider your brand prominent. Now, another thing's at play here as well. We have something I refer to as the savvy gap. You have savvy users, and they understand the difference between the paid ads and the organic ads. These users are going to get that very same impression, that you're doing your due diligence and you're a prominent brand. And they're going to understand why, because they understand what you did to get this. They're going to do you a favor and skip past your ad and click your organic listing. Whereas your non-savvy users are going to have the very same impression, but they're going to typically, more often than not, they're going to end up here on your pay-per-click ad. So at the end of the day, you got the consumer, regardless of if it was paid or organic, but it speaks to the necessity of having a strategy that includes both. So really quickly, let's define some of the biggest ad extensions that there are out there. On the left-hand side of this Venn diagram, we're looking at automated-only extensions. And on the green and right-hand side, we're looking at advertiser-influenced or advertiser-uploaded extensions that you could display in Google search. The overlap that we see means that Google could automate them if you chose not to provide them. So really quickly, the site links, we just saw those. Those are up to 4 additional links below your advertisement. Those are upwards of 150 characters apiece. So great way to push down the competition. Structured snippets and callouts. These are very similar, but they're about 25 character blocks. You can have up to 4 of those displayed. That's 100 additional characters of ad text. You could do review extensions, add prices, maps location with listing. You could put your app and have people directly download your app from Google, both in the Android and iTunes stores. Phone number, they could call from their mobile device or desktop. And then on the automated only side, quick note here, Google's never going to put an automated extension that said something defamatory or negative about you, because after all, this is a paid listing. So when they put consumer ratings, they will be positive. So they'll take these from your Google My Business listing. If you're doing shopping or PLA advertising, they have seller ratings that they can take directly from your seller ratings in Google Shopping. They could show you previous websites you visited or how many times you visited that particular website, or they could just choose to extend your headline. Either way of which combination of these extensions you choose, it's very important to participate in them. It's not all about just making extra ad text either. You still want to make sure when you add these new elements that you still have something to say to them, and you still have something of benefit to give them. Quickly, I'm going to jump into targeting. But before I do, a quick preface. Google sometimes can have a perception of being, say, a little bit of a big brother situation. They know a lot of data about any given individual. I'd like to dispel some of that. So data used by Google is actually operated off of blind data sets. So we don't know who any of these individuals are, their name, their actual location, anything like that. In fact, little to no people at Google can authorize that information, and they also have blind controls there too. So really, the whole point of these targeting types is to let us leverage these big data sets without infringing on anyone's privacy. That being said, we have an entire spectrum of targeting types to pick from. Now, I've picked some of the most popular and some of the most effective for this list. This list could go on for much more time. We have first our remarketing campaign. And remarketing is traditionally used where you visit a website, you spend some time, you did not convert, and then after that, you're reached out to and then have the availability to return to your website. Email lists can be uploaded, addresses, phone numbers, and all of those lists can be used to remarket to individuals. Website behavior, so how much time did they spend on a particular product, what kind of behaviors did they exhibit in your website, anything you can track in Google Analytics could be used as a targeting type. Google search history, so what have they been typing in recently to the search engine. Types of sites you frequently visit, your income, your interests and affinities. Now, oftentimes people ask, what's the difference between an interest and an affinity? Well, there is a difference. So let's say I just picked up tennis, and I play tennis once or twice a month. I don't always commit. Sometimes I don't show, but I do like it. It's definitely an interest of mine. Whereas, let's say, Chris, let's say you play tennis every single day.
I wish.
And you live and you live and breathe it. You would have an affinity for tennis at that point. So there's the difference. It is subtle, but definitely notable. Lastly, we have in-market signals. So in-market signals are a combination of a lot of the targeting types we saw above. But in-market signals, for example, let's say I start searching for golf clubs today, and I've never searched for golf clubs in my life. And I do 7 searches over the next 2 days. They're progressively getting more and more dialed in. Now I'm looking for Callaway golf clubs. And I've never searched for golf clubs before. They could put me in an in-market category because they know I'm looking for something right now that I'm very, very interested in. Now, if I have an affinity for golf, I might just be looking around. If I have an interest in golf, I might be purchasing. But with an in-market signal, you have a very educated guess that user is in market right then and there. So I thank you for all the time you spent with us today, and really hope you got a lot out of it, and look forward to the next session.
All right, Josh, why don't we take some questions here? So your Social SEO is a Google partner. What does that mean?
Yeah, definitely. So there's Google partners and then Google Premier partners. So Google partners, you're going to find about 80% of agencies participating at that level, and that's the introductory point, if you would. So we're Google Premier partners, which means we're of the top 10% of all agencies. So all campaigns that we run comply with best practices in a manner that is both pleasing to Google and effective for the clients, and that's what gives us the Premier Partner status. We can also leverage Google in a manner that not as many traditional partners could.
Excellent, excellent. What's the average return on investment our customers see, per dollar spent? Do you have any solid numbers on that?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit gray of an area because there's so many variables depending on what your vertical is, but there is some good rules of thumb in AdWords, and that would be if your conversion rate is at 1% or higher, and your click-through rate, so how often people click into your site and how often they actually convert, is also at 1%. The rule of thumb there is you should be seeing a return on advertising at that point in the neighborhood of 1%. So it's super easy to remember that way. Now, does it apply that way every time? Not necessarily. So that's why it usually takes 30 days to definitely see some results, but 90 days to see the most effective return on investment.
Excellent, excellent. What's the cost for people to waste money when getting started with Google AdWords? Goodness.
One of the big things I see is they get very excited and they hear about the power and what all AdWords can do, and they rush it, and they might hop into a lightweight platform like AdWords Editor, or maybe use a builder program that really is not there to focus on return on investment. They're focused on delivering your ad copy. So say take your time, work with either a partnered agency or work directly with Google as you're setting up your first few campaigns. Don't rush it. But the number one way people waste money would be what's called a broad match keyword. So a broad match keyword is a keyword that basically says, if that keyword exists in any search result, I would like to show an advertisement. So let's say a user accidentally puts the word, say they sell tennis shoes, and they put the word tennis shoe as a broad match keyword. Well, now all of a sudden, your ad's going to be showing up for blue tennis shoes, black tennis shoes, Nike tennis shoes, Reebok tennis shoes. But what if you were just trying to sell a white pair of Skechers? You've just shown your advertisement to a lot of things that were very irrelevant. People did click on it and cost you money, but they did not convert. So broad match keywords would definitely be the number one reason people waste money in AdWords.
Okay, excellent. Why don't we take two more questions? Let me see. What's the minimum spending that somebody would have to spend with us, and what does the onboarding process look like?
Oh, great questions. The minimum I recommend is about $1,000. But that being said, it's what you're comfortable with, because you need to start small and really just get a proof of concept in those first few months. Once you have that proven concept and you're converting well upwards of 1%, then it's really a matter of just deciding how much gas you want to pour on the fire. So 1,000 minimum. Now, if this isn't your first rodeo and say you're just looking to upgrade your optimization, you by no means need to start at 1,000. If it's your first time coming in, I'd say 1,000 is very palatable and a safe place for you to experiment effectively.
Excellent.
And then as far as the onboarding process, I mean, I just say I think we're second to none here. We're going to treat it very conversationally. When you talk to us, you are talking to a peer. Our sales team is as educated as our development team. So when you hear something, you know it's truth. And I think that conversational nature, the transparency and honesty will just speak through to itself during your onboarding process.
Great. Real quick, a lot of people don't know about that. Can you tell us about the Google grant?
Yes. So the Google grant is absolutely great. So Google grants is up to $10,000 of Google advertising granted to any 501c charity. So the great part here is, as long as you continue to optimize the account and you have someone making changes, they're going to continue to give you that $10,000 as long as you're registered as a 501c3. When you consistently spend the $10,000, they're going to actually bump you up to 20, 30, and then 40K and top you out at $40,000 a month of advertising. Now, not all the bells and whistles come with this, so there are some caveats. You can't do video or remarketing or the image advertising that we saw above. It's strictly text search advertising, and there's a limit of a $2 cost per click. That being said, for what most people need to bid on for charities, their cost per click is well below $2. So it's a great compromise. Google allows charities to use their platform with granted money, and the charities receive a whole new avenue to reach out and procure donations.
Awesome. Josh, this was truly a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. I learned a lot. I mean, this was a crash course to AdWords and PPC. Do you have a last tip for our audience before we end it here?
I'll circle back on just get excited, enjoy AdWords, because it is fun. But take your time, learn through everything, and once you're really comfortable with your campaign, then consider launching it.
Excellent. I mean, we're certainly here to help, so feel free to reach out. We'd love to help you with your AdWords and PPC campaigns. Josh, thank you so much. I look forward to our next webinar. With that said, I'm going to end it right here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.